All right, good morning, everybody. Happy Sabbath. So glad to be in God's house today, up in the upper room with y'all. It's going to be another great Sabbath. So good to see everybody here. We're going to have some great worship. We're going to have a great message, and it's going to be just a good time together. How many of y'all are ready for finals? Yeah, I didn't think so. I know that's probably something that's stressing you out right now, just on your mind, thinking about maybe some last-minute assignments you still have to turn in and all that stuff. But we're not trying to think about that right now because we're here in God's house, ready to rest our minds, rest our souls in God's presence, and so we don't have to think about any of those stressors today. And so are there any prayer requests today that I can pray for? Anybody with something specific in mind that you just need the pastor to pray for? Yeah, definitely pray for the finals. That's for sure. Anything else? Graduation? Yeah, definitely pray for graduation because that can be a little stressful as well. We've got all the family coming in and trying to figure out how all that logistics is going to work and, got to walk up on the stage and get your diploma. Oh, man, it's going to be great. Anything else? All right. Well, if not, let's go ahead and start with a word of prayer. I want to invite Ivory to come on out. She's going to pray our opening prayer for us. And just remember those things, the finals and graduation. Keep that in mind as well.
Let's bow our heads. Dear Jesus, I thank you for this wonderful day today. I thank you that it's very lovely outside. I thank you that we have all these people here to be with us and that Buddy's here. It's a very lovely surprise. Please help everyone with their studying for the final to go well. Please help them to not be so worried about it today so that they can have the stress to be relieved and for it to be all fine and for them to get good grades. Please help everyone driving on the road for them to be safe and for everyone to go home after this, for them to drive safely and have a great day. In your name, amen.
All right, so now we're going to have our praise time. So I want to invite our praise team to come up, and they're going to lead us in praise and worship. And so, guys, come on up.
Good morning, happy Sabbath, guys. That was weak. Good morning, happy Sabbath. Beautiful, Emma, I loved hearing your voice. So if you guys could stand up for our first song. What is our first song? Who You Say I Am.
Who am I that the highest
can sit down. Our next song is Reckless Love.
Chases me down.
next song is going to be Build My Life.
Every song we could ever sing, worthy of all the praise we could ever bring, worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. Live for you. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one that could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever bring. We live for you. We live for you. Holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder. Show me who you are. Fill me in your love to those around me. The best song we could ever sing. Worthy of all the praise we could ever bring. Worthy of every breath we could ever bring. We live for you. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one that could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever bring. We live for you. Oh, we live for you. Holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder. Show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. Trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken. I will stand upon your love. It is a firm foundation. I will not be shaken. Holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder. Show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me.
Let's bow our heads. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day that you've given us. Thank you that it's Sabbath again, and we get to come to your house of worship to praise your name and to receive your blessings. Thank you that you have given us another day of life, and please help the words that Pastor Steve is about to speak to us to not be his, but be yours. In your name I pray, amen.
Well, today we have a special blessing. Just want to introduce our speaker today. His name is Mr. Kubler, but he likes to be referred to as Buddy. If you go to CTA, then you know him very well already. He is the principal of CTA, and he was so gracious in us and kind enough to come and give us a message today. And so, Mr. Buddy, I'd like you to come on up and go ahead and bless us with the words that God has put on your heart for us today.
in Loma Linda, and I'm the dean there, right in one of the dorms, and there's an Indian guy. Now, when he first started work for me, I walk in the door, and all of a sudden he looks at me, and I can tell he was like giving me this, I'm caught. And I looked at him, and I said, "Oh, what are you doing?" And he kind of hesitated. He didn't know what to say to me, and he's like, "Tell me what you're doing. Okay, how bad could it be?" And he said, "Well, I was praying to my God." I'm like, "Oh, you were?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, we're allowed to use the internet now." And it's about 10 years ago. And he said, "There's about 15,000 gods, and we can pick which one we want to pray to. It's all about the internet. And we pray to our God." I'm like, "Well, that's really cool. You got that kind of dedication stuff." So this guy who's praying to his gods on the internet, right? About 6 months later, it's Saturday, and I'm like, "What are you doing today?" He's like, "I'm not doing anything." I'm like, "You're not studying or anything?" He goes, "No, because you're new Adventists." He goes, "They all take Saturday off, and they all do fine." I said, "They're all fasting. They're all my classmates, and they get a day off." He said, I decided this day off thing was pretty good, so I take Saturday off." But, he was catching on to what we were doing. All right. Today's theme is you reap what you sow. Right? You want good grades, it's not rocket science, right? Students come around all the time and say, "Oh, I'm failing." Okay, how much did you study? "Well, I really didn't." Okay, well, let me give you a hint. Study, it's not rocket science most of the time. There's some studies harder than others. You probably heard this before, but it says, "Sow a thought, right? Reap an action. Sow an action, reap a habit. Sow a habit, reap a character. Sow a character, reap a destiny." Every decision you make will make a difference of where you end up, especially when you go. You make decisions. I made some decisions often easy. I love to snow ski, and I went like 21 days straight in college, so I got pretty good. I knew how to ski, and we would just go down anything. We would look at each other and say, "Yeah, okay, let's go down that," and it was just basically rocks. I like skiing moguls. So when you ski moguls, really know how to ski, it's just bumps all over. And you can ski them really kind of between, or you can just bang on them like this, just keep banging. And so I would do that. Now I'm 19 years old, and I'm banging on the moguls, and I get to the bottom, and I'm like, rubbing my knees when I'm on the chair, saying, "That hurt." And then what did I do? I went back up, and I regret that today, because probably in about another 10 years, and I'd both my knees. My movement I use now, they go crack, 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 crack. They're just busted up. I started biking and gave up skiing, and because I gave up skiing and started biking about 30 years ago, my knees are actually better than they were 30 years ago. But they're still, the damage is done. So one of these days, I'm just going to live long enough. I wish I could go back and I would still ski, but I wouldn't be so. Right? So everything you do, every decision you make in your mind will make a difference. Makes sense, right? And the thing is too, like if one of you guys to run, if Landon starts running in a certain direction, right, I can deflect him over to one side, or I can kind of deflect him over to the other pretty well. If he's running the total wrong direction and I try to push him back, it's not going to work real well. Right? It's going to be a hard hit. And that's kind of the way life is too. If you go the total wrong direction, it will come back to bite you. Regardless of what it is. Okay? All right, so I need somebody to read Philippians 4, 8, and 9. a school when I'm a teacher. I always have $20 on the pocket. Nobody wants to talk. So I pull out a dollar bill, give the first person who talks, and after that, and they don't want to shut up a week later. All right, so tell me something good. Come on, what's something good you can do? That's all. What? Food. So if it's good, okay. So if you're gonna say food, then you're talking about you eating it, or you're talking about you giving it away, or what are you talking about? Okay, either one. So does it matter what you eat? Kind of. Look, if you don't care about your health, then it doesn't matter. You care about your health, right? My family, my mother was pregnant with me when she became Adventist. So she always says I was baptized twice. Thank God, because I needed it. So they raised me vegetarian. Now that was a good thing because my cancer rates now are low. I never eat meat. Okay, but I was allowed to get my Rice Krispies, which are pure sugar, and put in the milk, and then put a spoonful of sugar on it, and push it all down, and put another spoonful of sugar on it, and then put like something sweet on top of it, like honey. And I was bouncing off the walls. I was a kid who couldn't sit still. I had energy back then. I wasn't slow as I am today. And so it was like my mother's favorite statement to me was go out and play, go out and play, go out and play. So she took me out of the house like that. Because otherwise I just straight out. So there's some things. I don't have diabetes, thank the Lord, but I got over that. But I'm glad you raised me vegetarian. Okay, what else besides food? What else is good? What? Yeah, pull this off. I can't hear. Pets. Is that what you said? Okay. Are pets good? Yeah, sure. They're awesome, right? I mean, we've all had pets, and it's amazing because there's one thing that pets don't do to us. There's one thing that pets don't do to us. I don't know if you'll pick up the word I'm looking for or not. And we love on them all the time, right? And they love on us all the time. I mean, dogs, you push them around and they still come back with their tail and their tongue and wag on the way. But they don't criticize us. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons why we are so into pets. Right? And people that have pets actually, the elderly people that are older than me, that are alone, if they have pets, they actually are happier to live alone. So pets are good. All right, let's move on. What other things does it say besides whatever is good? What are some other words? Okay, so what's noble? That's a little different. Who said that? You? Oh. What's noble? What? Okay, giving to the poor. Isn't that a noble thing to do? Look, noble would be like a good thing, right? It's a good thing to do. There's lots of good things that we can do. Agreed? Okay. All right. There's all kinds of ways, right? We can apply this to what happens to us physically. We can apply this to how much disease we have, right? We can apply it to who we marry, what we watch on TV, what we listen to. So when I was young, we had sex, drugs, and rock and roll, like the big sort of say in the 60s. And, there was a lot of druggies, there really were back in those days. And the music wasn't quite as verbally abusive as it is today. I mean, now a lot of music, try to find a song that's not saying a bunch of cuss words and everything else that's somewhat popular is a challenge sometimes. Back in my day, they didn't cuss as much, but what they talked about was still garbage. Satan knows what he's doing. Back when I was little, they had TVs, by the way. We didn't have cell phones, we had computers. The telephone only had a cord that long, it was in the kitchen, everybody's that way. You pick the phone up, and you might have one or two other people on it, because we had party lines, so you didn't have your own line. So you had to ask the other person when they're going to be done. So it was back a few years ago. So there were some things that were different. There were some things that were different. Let's move on. Job 4, 7, and 9. So somebody read Job 4, 7, and 9. Somebody else. What's your name? James? What's your last name? Job 4, 7 through 9.
Stop and think, if the innocent die, what have the upright done truly? My experience shows that those who find trouble and cultivate evil will harvest the same. A breath from God is going to them, they vanish in the blast as it comes in.
Okay, so what's the principle of what you just read? What's the principle of what she just read? What? Yeah, you reap what you sow, right? And it even says that if I observe those who plow, those who sow trouble reap it. So if you're the type that's always stirring up trouble, right, and eventually it's going to come back to bite you. I mean, that's biblical, and it will. I don't know too many. I'll talk about my niece. If you're in my classes, you know my niece will. My niece is a meth addict. She was a meth addict. She quit about a year ago. So far, this is like, and she was a meth addict for like 30-some years. So it was a big deal. I'm still praying. It's awesome. But nonetheless, her life is a mess. And by the way, her life is a mess. And when she was like 12, that's when she was just doing little things. You know, she was supposed to study and she didn't, so she failed a class, so she had to take it over. She eventually fails a grade. And she was like, whatever, you know. She's 13, and so she starts to, I'm supposed to come home at 9, but I don't come home until 10:30. Get some big parties. And then eventually she starts sneaking out of the house at nighttime. Well, she just kept making worse and worse and worse decisions. My point in talking about her is that she reaped what she sowed. She not only reaped what she sowed, it created hell for my family. Okay, I was raised, me and my sister were in a family, and our parents were the envy of every student, every kid in the church. My parents loved everybody. Everybody always came to our house. We loved my parents. We just had a phenomenal early life. And yet my niece making those decisions, and we have to take some of that responsibility. I have to get into that too. But in her making those bad decisions just didn't affect her. It affected us, and it still affects us today, 40 years later. There's still a lot of headache and pain and tears. And not only that, she was a baby factory. So she's a meth addict mother that's a baby factory, and the state takes the babies every time they're born. So my sister would take the babies, so she doesn't want the state to have the babies. So my sister, who's now 65, is raising a 9-year-old, a 13-year-old, and a 15-year-old. The 13 and a 15-year-old have been arrested 4 or 5 times already in the last year or two. And they're a mess, and they'll smoke pot in the backyard and get in trouble. Last time I was in Florida, which was Christmas, they were smoking pot in the backyard, so I took it from them and threw it in the lake. I wasn't even mad. And they know me. I'm very calm. I'm like, well, that's pretty stupid. What did you pay for it? $100. Well, that cost you $100. I threw it away. And, what are they going to do? Well, it's stupid. But my point is that Lisa started to make decisions about her, and it ended up, affecting even her 5 children. And finally, she got her tubes tied, thank the Lord. And we love them, but they're a mess. All right, let's move on. Proverbs 11, 17 to 19. Proverbs 11, 17 to 19. I'm going to eventually come over here and force the male portion of this. And I tend to pick on people I know, so I'm going to be for people. Me? You're Mendoza? You're David's son. No. No? Eli? No. What's your name? Psalm from Proverbs 11, 17 to 19.
Your kindness will reward you, but your cruelty will destroy.
Wait, read it loud.
Your kindness will reward. I can't say that.
Reward?
Yeah. You, but your cruelty will destroy you. Evil people get rich for the moment, but that word of the godly will last. Godly people find life, and evil people find death.
Yeah, how many times have we looked at somebody and thought, and I've thought this, it's like, man, they have so much, and they curse God. And yet they seem to be so blessed. I used to think that more when I was younger. I don't see that as much anymore. There's a lot of rich people that we hear about, and that are famous and everything else, and they commit suicide. Here they have, because most of us think that the thing that's going to make us happy is, money. Money will get you a chance to do a lot of fun things, don't get me wrong, but it will bring you no happiness. My church was a very close church, about 200-300 people, and so about 5 of the families there were really tight, and those were always called my aunt and uncle. I mean, when the kids got in trouble, I got in line, I got spanked with the rest of them. Didn't matter who the parent was, you're going to get it. And so it's just, everybody was aunt and uncle. Well, we had some really, really super close friends of mine that were in the same class I'm in, and they were really they weren't dirt poor, but they were pretty close. I mean, they had a washing machine in the backyard, and I don't know if you've seen them in history books, but it's got the two rollers on the top, and so it's an open tub that shakes the clothes. And then when you're done with the clothes, you put them in the roller and you turn this crank and squeeze your clothes through the roller, right? I mean, those are very old. You'll find them in museums now. And they had one of those. Electric cord going on the outside, when it would rain, it would blow and all that kind of stuff. Well, by the time they were around 11 or 12, their dad went to work for himself. And it took him about 2 years and became a millionaire. And he said, I remember talking to him, that after he made his first, he was obsessed to make his first million. And after he made his first million, all he wanted to do was make his second million. That's right, make another one. And then after he made 2, he wanted 5. And after he made 5, I don't know where he finally got over it, somewhere around 20. So they're filthy rich. But here's the deal. Now, this person's like a sister to me. There's 3 of them in the family. And I can remember one time at graduation time, somewhere around our senior year, she's crying and we're talking and everything else. And she's like, you know, all this money and everything else, I'd give it all up to have a family like yours. Well, my parents, you know, my dad did okay too, but he was at all the events. He was there all the time. Anything that was going on, my parents would show up. Well, her dad was too busy. And so what they had done is they lost their dad for 5 or 6 years. He got over it after that finally. He got to where now with the grandkids, he gets to do a lot of things and everything else. But there's a good chunk of years that they realized the money meant nothing. They didn't care about the money anymore. It didn't matter. The money is not going to ever give you happiness. As a matter of fact, if you look anywhere besides Christ for your happiness, it's going to be worthless. I don't care what it is, sex, drugs. It's going to make misery out of your life. Nothing else works. All right, let's move on. Galatians 6, 7, and 9. So I say what happens to us physically. Okay? Galatians 6, 7, and 9. Let's get one of the guys to do it. I got his hand up. Look at this guy. Okay, wait. Can you mind?
Oh, yeah.
Good.
Don't be misled. You cannot mock the justice of God. You always harvest what you plant. You want me to
Yeah, a little bit.
only to satisfy their own sinful nature will harvest decay and death from that sinful nature. But those who live to please the Spirit will harvest the everlasting life from the Spirit. So let's not get tired of doing what is good. At just the right time, we will reap the harvest of blessings if we don't give up.
Cool. Yeah, one of the favorite things I think the Bible says to me is don't be tired of doing good. Because I have gotten tired in my life and thought, this isn't doing any good. I'm doing this all the time, but nobody else is doing it. And, Christ didn't use that as his reason for doing or not doing things, right? He just did it because he loves. I like this guy. I believe it. Okay? He just did it because he loves, right? And that needs to be my motivation too. I do things because I love. Not because I'm looking for some kind of satisfaction for me. My satisfaction and my feelings that make me feel good about what I'm doing come from Christ. And they don't need to come from anybody else. Don't get me wrong. I love my wife. My wife loves me, and I want that. And if she decides that she doesn't love me as much that day, it makes my life a little rougher. There's no question about it. But even then, I need to seek, not in your boyfriend or your girlfriend or that kind of thing. You need to get the love you need from Christ. And then when you have a boyfriend or girlfriend, it's a much more solid relationship because it's not a dependency. It's a relationship the way it's supposed to be. And then when you make mistakes, you forgive instead of devastating, your life and those kind of things. And you don't make as many mistakes. All right, so this again says you reap what you sow. Okay? So I'm going to go into health first. Do you know what the top 10 things are that you die from, that we die from as Americans? Any guesses? Okay, number 1 is heart disease. She's absolutely right. It's not COVID, by the way. It's heart disease. I don't know if you know, and I don't want to be too tough on this, but I don't know anybody who hasn't died from COVID in the last 2 years. And the 2 years before that, people died from a lot of things. So they're still dying from those other things. I don't deny that maybe they got COVID with it. That may be the case. But nonetheless, it's not just COVID that killed them. That they would have probably died if they got pneumonia in a lot of those cases, and those kind of things. But the thing, for whatever reason, that disease or that flu has spread really quick, like other flu, And this one had a little more punch to it than others. All right, heart disease. Okay, can we do anything about a heart? Can you do anything now at your age so that you're not going to be the statistic? Yeah, come on, eat healthy and yeah, it's not rocket science, okay? Eat healthy, exercise. There's some other things you can do too. I keep my window open. I've kept it open. I've known this for decades, but I've kept it open now for about 4 years. I keep the bedroom window open, and it's because fresh air is a huge deal. And we don't do it. We just nowadays we close everything up. Everything's AC or heat or whatever. Anyway, I do my window. So when it's 100 outside, it's 90 in my room, and when it's 20 outside, it's 40 in my room. When I was a kid, we didn't even have heaters. We had heaters called another blanket. We had an AC. It's called stand in front of the window. If you're lucky, the breeze is blowing. If not, you sweat. That's the way it was. Black and white TV too, by the way. We thought it was great at the time. And 6 stations. Yeah, 3 UHF, 3 VH, and they shut off like 10 o'clock. Some of them do. Yeah, it's great. Okay, what's the number 2 thing? So we know the first one is heart disease. Clearly, we know we can do something about it. Right? Okay, what's the second one? Cancer. You're right. You look it up. No? He's right. Cancer is the second one. Oh, you guys are doctor. That helps anyway. Okay, so cancer. What's the third one? Yeah, good try. Accidents. Number 3 is accidents. Unintentional accidents. So the number 1 reason that people had car accidents used to be drunk. That's right. And I'm still high. Drinking and driving and causing accidents is still a big, big deal. But the number 1 reason now is cell phones. Yeah. And it used to be that the guy's insurance was much higher when you stepped in. And it's because we tend to have switches for accelerators instead of having an accelerator down here that we're supposed to regulate. And so they always knew that. And guys were just less responsible. We're not as mature. They say, sorry. Anyway, we're less responsible. That's just a general statement. And so the insurance, when you pay for insurance at your age, back in the 70s, it was really high for guys, and the girls were paying like half as much. And it was like, what's with that? But it's not true anymore. Because now the women, because they like to communicate more than us, the guys put the phones down, and they drive. And the women,
It's still less for women.
so what?
The car insurance is still less.
It's still less?
Yeah.
It's going up a lot. Because of cell phones. You guys are, it's become a huge problem. All right, let's move on. Next one, I'm going to just list the rest of them. Chronic lower respiratory disease. Do you think there's anything you can do about having healthy lungs? Yeah, breathe. Yeah, exercise. Get fresh air. Okay. The 5th one is stroke. Okay. Again, another one that's preventable. At least you can do things to minimize the effects or minimize when you have stroke. The 6th one is Alzheimer. The 7th one is diabetes. That's a huge problem. When I was young, again, no kids. You never heard of anybody that wasn't an adult that had diabetes. It didn't exist. It just didn't happen. And now it's not uncommon. And that has totally to do with our diet. Our American diet is pathetic. And one more side note, the biggest, and I'm going to say almost the only reason that a food company is concerned about for the most part is what? Yeah, money. Money. They're interested in making money. That's why Taco Bell and Burger King and those places, they don't make stuff to say, oh, this is healthy. They say it's healthy. Their healthy is somewhat pathetic, but it's better than some of the other stuff that they sell. And as Americans, I have lots of friends that think if you go to McDonald's and eat a burger every day, that's a pretty good meal and it's pretty healthy. At least it's got a lot of vegetarian meat in it now, because they're trying to save money and stuff. Might be healthier than it was when I was a kid. Next one is influenza, the flu, or pneumonia. So we can help prevent from getting it. Nine of them are clearly preventable, but you have to do something about it at your age. I mean, if I just go to the church and randomly take, I'll say 20 of you are here, and just grab 20 from the church that are all my age and sit them down, and you look at the difference between how all of you look right now and how all of us look over here, you're going to tell who's lived a healthy life in the past. My niece, who's 20 years younger than me, looks 10 years older than me. But she's abused and beat her body so bad with drugs and everything else. She's got venereal diseases. She's a mess. I love her to death. She even knows I talk about her. But she's like, oh, if somebody can get a blessing out of it, go for it. So that's a good thing. My point is you reap what you sow, right? Okay. Somebody read Philippians 4, 8, 9 again for me, please. Philippians 4, 8, and 9. Carlos is pulling it up. We got it.
Yeah. And now, dear brothers and sisters, one final thing. Fix your thoughts on what's true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable. Think about the things that are excellent and worthy of praise. Keep putting into practice all you've learned and received from me. Everything you've heard from me and saw me do, and then the God of peace will be with you.
Okay, somebody read Proverbs 4:23. One of the ladies, please. When it says guard your heart, what's it really talking about? The feelings, sure, that's part of it. Right? You're all familiar with the text that says, don't be concerned about what goes in your mouth. It's like the fact that you just talked about health. What do you be concerned about? It doesn't mean throw health out the window. But be concerned about what comes out of your mouth. Well, what's that mean? Why does the Bible say that? They're not talking about you throwing up. Well, they should be concerned about that too. Okay? God's not saying don't worry about what you eat. He's trying to say that the things that come out of our mouth are the things that are in our, they're in our mind. They're what we listen to. They're what we watch. They're what we hang around. Right? Yeah. And I'm going to say it again. Everything you do, the thing I love about consequences is there's always, of anything we do, there's always a consequence. And you hear that usually in a negative context. But you hear that in a positive context, is like, I like to say it in a positive context. Because if you choose to do healthy things now, when you're my age, you'll have my energy. Okay? If you choose to fill your mind with good things now, when you're my age, you will think good thoughts. There's some things that I've done that are really good, and that come up in my mind all the time. I hear you guys praising those songs, and the songs just ring in my head. Later on, I'm just whistling a song and realize, oh yeah, that sounds cool, right? Because that's what I put in my head. But when I put some of my older, cocaine songs that I've listened to 1,000 times when I was a kid, those come up in my head sometimes too, and I'm like, it's not good, right? And I just have to kind of shut them off and move on. But I stuck it there. And it's stuck there. Sometimes you can't get it out. God does purify us, I get that. But you do reap what you sow. Make sense? Okay. All right. Philippians, excuse me. Okay, Ephesians 4:17-24. I'll read. So I tell you this and insist on it in the Lord, that you must no longer live as the Gentiles do in futility of their thinking. The reason that I'm reading this particular set is because most of us want to do what everybody else is doing. We don't realize how wrapped up in the world that we are. I'll say it. We had dress code, right, at the school, and that can be a pain. Your dress is very pretty, and yet you can't wear that, or you can't have a strap, right? So you have a strap. But nonetheless, there's certain standards that they do. When I was in school, right, our dress, the way we dressed back in the 70s was a problem. It was a big problem. And I would even tell you, even when I was a Christian, the way I dressed was a problem. I didn't see it as a problem back then, but now I'm like, ooh, we were worse. A lot worse than what we did. It's just the way it was. We weren't modest at all. And all of you are. And all of you. I'll say that to you. I won't say it to you guys. But y'all look good though. So it's nothing new. But I would tell you that when I look back on that, I'm like, oh, all we were doing was dressing the way everybody else was dressing. You know, we were just doing whatever society was doing, and there's so much pressure to do that. Now, there's you know, I don't think that we have to look like freaks, you know, and I don't think we have to wear clothing from our, you know, head down to our ankles. You know, I'm not going to go there, but there is principles. What are the principles? What's the number one principle of when we're going to dress properly? What? Yeah, cover yourself, what we call that word. Modesty. Yeah, same thing for guys, right? We had, back in the 70s, sports, all sport clothing was spray-on. Guys and girls, wasn't any different. It's all basically spray-on. Well, we do that now. If you went back 100 years, a lot of us would be like, woo, you know, tossed out of the church. But I'm not saying it's all right, but nonetheless. We tend to want to do whatever, like what music do we listen to? We listen to the music that is, popular. That's exactly what it is, right? Whatever's popular, we listen to. Now, I used to listen to a lot of different kinds of music. Now, I really only listen to Christian music. I couldn't tell you the latest songs in the last 10, 15 years, unless they played at the mall all the time. You know, I heard it. But I think there's good secular music. I'm not dogging all secular music by any means. But there's a standard for what we listen to. And it should be what? What is good and pure, right? So it needs to be good first and pure first. And I can tell you a lot of songs that I have roller skated, and I love the roller skate, that I have roller skated to that are nothing but pure garbage. And I love them. I mean, you know, they were fun songs. They're still fun songs, but I've learned that there's a lot of fun things that are still garbage. Makes sense? There's a lot of funny jokes that are still wrong. And there's a lot of funny things that I used to do that still were the wrong things to do. I'm still there. Is that fair enough? Okay. Philippians 4, 8, and 9. Whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, think about such things as these. Let's bow our heads. Heavenly Father, I realize that you are not only the one in charge, know everything, want us to be spiritual and want us to worship you. You also are a God of fun. And the Christian life frees you up and gives you the ability to just enjoy life and to have peace. And Lord, help us. Help us to seek that which is pure, that which is true, that which is noble, and to use that as a standard in our lives so that you can use us to draw others to you, so we can live with you in eternity. All right, guys, thank you very much.